So it's been about a month since my last video. For those of you that don't follow me on Facebook or Twitter, I've just joined a new band. We're called Guardsmen. So as with any new project, things have gotten quite busy. Booking shows. We already played our first 2 shows. We're actually auditioning bassists. So I guess you can say I've been a little distracted from videos. And so there's that new band. I'm going to leave a link for you guys to check us out in the description if you want. No obligation. And yeah, just a few setbacks, like my place flooded. I had to get everything out of here and stuff like that recently. So there was that. But hey, I'm back on track. We're back on track. We can continue with videos. Yeah, so for today, we're going to discuss some more of guitar mods. And today we're talking specifically about the electronics. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate what I said in my last video, that any kind of mod that you do to your instrument or guitar or bass, it will affect the resale value. So what does that mean? Well, no matter what you do, no matter how cool you think the change is, your guitar is going to be most likely worth less than it was when you bought it. So again, mod at your own discretion, and yeah. So, or if you're like me and you just don't care and you just want to mess around with mods, then awesome. So for the electronic mods, I highly recommend at least getting some practice time with soldering, or if you have absolutely no idea how to solder or how to approach it, always feel free to contact a guitar tech at your local guitar shop, because last video we talked about hardware mods. Now most of those are pretty easy. You can do them yourself if you're handy. But these electrical ones, they require a more delicate touch, just to traverse the cavity. Not all of them. Some of these are pretty easy that you can do yourself. But again, I highly recommend getting a professional for these. And we're also, I'm going to kind of break this into 2 halves. We're going to talk about common mods, and then we're going to talk about uncommon mods. And also we're going to go by difficulty, because again, some of these are kind of tricky. And yeah, if you're not careful, you could mess up your instrument. So I guess the first and foremost and most common modification that you can do to your instrument is upgrading the basic electronics. And I'm talking about your output jacks, your pots, under your knobs if you don't know what they are, the switch, your switch on your guitar, to change the pickups. And by upgrading, I simply mean because your stock ones are more likely made of cheap materials, and they will fall apart pretty soon. So it's usually advisable at least to think about getting some really nice handmade parts. There's a debate going on about do better made parts sound better? Well, that's up to you. That's up to your ears. But they will last you longer, so consider that. And other than maybe a minor to moderate amount of experience soldering is all that's needed. I changed the jack on one of my guitars, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just took the old jack, made sure that they matched, and copied the same, I guess you can say, diagram. This wire goes here, this wire goes there, boom, and it works perfectly. I'm not saying that you should go about doing it like that. I'm reckless. But again, that's a very common way to start, just with the basic electronics. Moving on up, you might consider another common one is just straight up changing your pickups, the pickups of your guitar. And again, I recommend getting a professional for this, simply because depending on the kind of pickups that you get, it could require a large amount of soldering. You might need an entirely new guitar, the cavity. You might need entirely new wiring system. Depending on what you get. And if it's like, for example, a solderless type of pickup that I have right now in my EMGs, it's a little bit different in that you don't need to make sure certain cables match with each other. It's just a simple, this one goes here, this one goes there, boom, and then they quick connect. They don't solder to each other. So that's another thing to consider. So you have options. Another common electronic mod that is fairly easy, now a lot of people don't even think about it, it's shielding. What is shielding? Well, usually you just get, you can use either shielding tape or shielding paint. I have not used shielding paint, so I cannot attest to its use. But what it is you get this shielding material and you put it all along the inside of the guitar cavity of your electronics. It means you're going to have to take everything out, nice, and you just kind of put this tape on the inside. And what that does is that blocks outside signals from interfering with your electronics in your guitar. Now this is helpful if you're playing, for example, a really, let's say like a radio station, where you're getting a lot of outside signals. Also it could also block your phone from, sometimes if your phone is ringing while you're playing, you will hear it. Things like that. It's very simple. You don't have to do it, but it's, it's handy. Some people swear by it. Others are kind of, no difference. And it's very easy. You can buy like the shielding tape. I think I got it like at Home Depot or something like that. And yeah, that's another very common one. Very easy to do. And I guess going a little bit backwards, as far as upgrading, you can also try your hand at coil tapping. And what that is basically you're just getting some modified pots for your guitar that they call them push-pull, and that just alters the signal of your instrument, or from your pickups, I should say. So for example, if you're using humbuckers, the coil tapping will allow it to sound like a single coil. I won't get into the the nitty-gritty of how it works, but that's just an idea for you to think about. Well, those are all pretty common, pretty simple to do. So for the uncommon ones, this is where things get a little bit serious, and I highly recommend getting a professional to take care of these, because these you are going to need help, regardless, whether it's your first time doing it or you've done them before. So one that I would consider to be uncommon is what's simply called vintage wiring. Now, what that is you're basically taking out all the wiring from your instrument and you're replacing it with vintage wiring. Well, what is that? Vintage wiring, it's a special kind of wire that the coating around the actual wire, it's not plastic like you would find in your instrument. It's actually like a cloth or a fabric, and it's vintage in the sense that people say that it provides like a warmer tone, just simply because of the shielding around the wire, which is a fabric. And again, that's kind of uncommon, but it does require some work, simply because you have to take out the wiring, you have to add new wiring, stuff like that. Another thing to consider, or another mod I should say, that's a bit more uncommon, and I stress that if you want to do something like this, you're going to have to specifically look up your instrument and this kind of wiring diagram, because you are going to have to look at wiring diagrams. Say for example you have a Telecaster. Let's say you want to add a 5-way switch. Telecasters usually have a 3-way switch, you know, but let's say you want to add a 5-way switch like you would find in a Strat. You can do that. And again, this gives you tonal, very varying degrees of tonal possibilities. Or, for example, if you have a Gibson and you want to wire it like a Strat, again, you're getting very different tonal possibilities, and that requires looking up diagrams. You're going to have to most likely add or subtract different wires. You may have to add or subtract resistors to your pots. So as you can see, like, I'm already throwing stuff at you that you're probably like, whoa. But that's what's going to entail how to do something like that. I call that alternative wiring for your instrument. And there are so many, like literally so many. How to wire a Telecaster like a Gibson. How to get, for example, how to get Eddie Van Halen's wiring, you know, from his Frankenstein Strat. You know, there are so many things that you can do. So I highly recommend, if you know off the top of your head that you want your Telecaster to sound like this, there's a way to do it, but you're gonna have to search. Another uncommon one that you are going to need help for this, because right off the bat I'm letting you know this is going to take some hardware, because you need to route your guitar, and that means that you're going to have to drill into your guitar. Is installing a kill switch. Now a kill switch can be either a button or literally a switch, and what that does is it literally kills your guitar. It just stops the signal from your guitar to your amp, and if you're a fan of Buckethead, they've used this. They've used the kill switch to great effect to get like a machine gun kind of sound, which is pretty cool. And again, this is to install one. You're most likely, you're definitely gonna have to route a guitar if it's not set up for a kill switch. Which, again, get a professional to help you with that. And depending on the kind of kill switch, you might need to install or make room in the cavity for, like, most likely a battery, if it lights up, stuff like that. So yeah, next one, another uncommon mod. It exists. It's rare, but it is out there. Installing a pedal, a guitar pedal into your guitar. Now, you might think that, whoa, that sounds kind of crazy, but they do exist. I believe the guitarist from, I think it's Five Finger Death Punch or Killswitch, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. They have he has a phaser in his guitar, which is really cool. I think he uses a Boss phaser, like a modified Boss, and it's just right here in the butt of his guitar. I call it the butt. I know Tom Morello, he has his wah pedal in his on one of his guitars. That way he can control it with his elbow, which is just insane. But this idea of installing a pedal, obviously you're going to have to route your guitar to make room. You're going to have to route it for a whole new series of wiring, and again, that is going to take some professional help. And that's not just for pedals. There are also the onboard effects that you can use. What is it, the touch tone thing that you know, you can control your amp with? I forget what it's called, but that's another thing that will require some special touches. Oh, another uncommon mod. It exists. It's out there. You don't see it ever that much. Installing LEDs into your fretboard. It looks cool. You know, most likely it'll be like blue or red dots on your fretboard instead of the. Well, I really like these inlays. I'm not going to replace them with lights. But and again, that also requires routing, and not just in the body, but it's going to involve routing in your neck. which could, you know, damage it. It could warp it. So again, get a professional that knows how to do these. I very recommend that you do that. Otherwise, you will ruin your guitar. Yeah, off the top of my head, those are just a few. I mean, there are so many. I could make separate videos about each and every one of these mods, and the ones I haven't even mentioned yet that I have forgotten because I just came from work and I got right down to business. And you know, there are so many possibilities that you can do out there, and I'm open to discuss it. So if you have a question or a comment, please let me know, because I feel like, hey, I need to lay down some education for you guys. But again, those are some common and uncommon mods that exist that you can do to your guitar that will change it. Maybe you don't like the way it sounds. Maybe you just want to add some variety, you know, by adding, for example, a coil tapping system. Having a very versatile workhorse guitar. Or maybe you just want a guitar that'll look and sound nuts, you know, with an LED, you know, system and a whammy bar, or I'm sorry, a wah pedal in the butt. And yeah, hopefully, you know, again, mod at your discretion. But hey, I am Leo the guitarist. Thank you for watching, and as always, subscribe. Find me on Facebook and Twitter, and yeah, thanks for watching, guys.